Today, I'm sharing my friend's story, told in his own words. It's a journey of a trust that was broken on the very streets we call home. My name is Liam, and I always believed that family was the one thing you could count on when the rest of the world turned its back. I worked 60 hours a week as a senior analyst to provide a life for my wife, Amelia, that most people only dream of. We had the house with the white picket fence, the luxury SUV, and a marriage that I thought was unbreakable. Then came my younger brother, Chris. Chris was always the trouble child. He couldn't keep a job, he couldn't stay out of debt, and he always had an excuse for his failures. When our parents called me crying, saying Chris was about to be homeless, my heart won over my head. I told Amelia, "He's my brother, we can't let him sleep on the streets." Amelia seemed hesitant at first, but eventually she agreed. For the first month, it was fine. Chris was quiet, stayed in the guest room, and helped around the house. But slowly, the atmosphere in my own home began to change. I started noticing small things. Amelia was suddenly wearing more perfume when I wasn't home. She started laughing at Chris's stupid, immature jokes in a way she never laughed at mine. When I would come home from a long day of earning the money that kept them both fed, I felt like an intruder in my own living room. They would be sitting close on the couch, and as soon as I walked in, they'd jump apart. I told myself I was being paranoid. This was my brother and my wife. There was no way they would betray me like that, but my gut feeling wouldn't leave me alone. One night I came home early because a meeting was canceled. I walked through the back door and heard music coming from the kitchen. I saw Chris and Amelia dancing, not a friendly dance, but something intimate. When they saw me, Chris just gave me this strange, arrogant look, while Amelia fumbled for an excuse about just having fun. The real blow came a week later. I was in the kitchen fixing a drink when Chris walked in. He didn't look like a guest anymore. He looked like the man of the house. He leaned against the counter and looked at me with a sickening smirk. "You know, Liam," he said, "Amelia really appreciates a man who is actually around. You're so busy making money that you've forgotten how to keep your wife happy. But don't worry. I've been taking very good care of her for you." My blood ran cold. He wasn't just admitting it, he was bragging. He described things that no brother should ever say to another. He told me they had been together in my own bed while I was at the office. He called me a glorified wallet and said that Amelia was only staying for the lifestyle I provided. He thought I was weak. He thought I would cry or beg. But as I looked into his smug eyes, I realized that the brother I once loved was gone. In his place was a parasite. And I was about to stop feeding him. Most men would have swung a punch. Most men would have kicked them both out that second. But I knew that if I acted on emotion, I would lose. If I kicked them out now, Amelia would take half of everything in a divorce, and Chris would walk away laughing. No, I needed to be cold. I needed to be calculated. I spent the next 3 weeks playing the part of the clueless husband. It was the most agonizing time of my life. I had to sit at the dinner table and watch Chris eat the steak I paid for, while he gave secret, knowing glances to my wife. I had to kiss Amelia goodbye in the morning, knowing exactly whose skin she had been touching while I was away. But while they were playing house, I was playing chess. I visited a high-end private investigator. Within days, I had high-definition footage of them together in my house. I had transcripts of their texts where they mocked my workaholic nature and planned how they would spend my money once they eventually got rid of me. I discovered that Chris had been using the emergency credit card I gave him to buy Amelia expensive jewelry and hotel rooms. He was literally using my own money to fund his affair with my wife. Every time I felt like breaking down, I looked at the footage. Every time I felt like screaming, I looked at my bank statements. I didn't just want a divorce, I wanted a total wipeout. I spent those weeks quietly moving my personal assets into a separate trust that predated our marriage. I spoke to my landlord, we were renting a high-end estate, and told him I wouldn't be renewing the lease, which was up in a month. I canceled the secondary insurance on the cars. I was slowly removing the ground from beneath their feet, and they were too busy laughing at me to notice the floor was disappearing. The tension reached a boiling point during the planning of my father's 60th birthday dinner. Chris had the audacity to suggest we host it at our house. He wanted to play the perfect family man in front of our parents while sleeping with my wife. I agreed. In fact, I insisted on it. I told them I would handle the entertainment for the evening. They thought I meant a slideshow of family photos. They had no idea I was preparing a horror movie where they were the stars. The night of the party arrived. The entire family was there. My parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Amelia was dressed in a stunning red dress I'd bought her, and Chris was acting like the host, pouring drinks and telling stories. He even had the nerve to put his arm around my shoulder and thank me for being such a generous brother. After dinner, I stood up to give the toast. I saw my mother smiling, her eyes misty with pride for her 2 sons. I felt a pang of guilt for her, but it was drowned out by the memory of Chris's smirk in the kitchen. "I have a special presentation for my brother and my wife," I said, pointing to the large projector screen in the dining room. I pressed play. It wasn't a family slideshow. It was the security footage of Chris and Amelia in our living room. It was the screenshots of their texts calling my parents old and boring, and me a clown. The room went deathly silent. My mother's glass shattered on the floor. My father's face turned a deep shade of purple. I looked at Chris, who was now trembling. I looked at Amelia, who was sobbing. "The house is gone," I said calmly. "The lease ends tomorrow morning. The cars are being towed tonight. And the bank accounts, they're empty. You two wanted to be together so badly. Well, now you can be together on the street." I expected my father to grab Chris by the collar. I expected my mother to hug me. But then came the U-turn that I will never forget. My mother stood up, but she didn't walk toward me. She walked toward Chris. She grabbed him in a hug and then turned to me with eyes full of rage. "How could you?" she screamed. "You humiliated him. You made your own brother a villain in front of the whole world. He made a mistake, Liam, but you are cold. You are a monster." My father joined in. "Liam, you have everything. You have the money, the career. Chris has nothing. Why couldn't you just talk to us? Why did you have to destroy his life over a woman? He's your blood." They didn't care about the betrayal. They didn't care about the theft. They only cared that I had ruined the family image and stopped being the brother who paid for everything. They chose the weak son because they felt he needed them more, and they punished me for being strong enough to stand up for myself. That night, I didn't just lose a wife and a brother. I walked away from my parents, too. They moved Chris and Amelia into their guest room. They tell everyone in town that I'm a narcissistic sociopath who tricked his wife. But as I sit in my new home, thousands of miles away, I don't feel like a villain. I feel like a man who finally took out the trash. They can keep each other. I'll keep my peace. Was I wrong for humiliating them, or did they get what they deserved?